podcast. And we should say about tonight's announcement by President Trump that President Obama wanted to address the nation about immigration. What was this, 5 years ago? I don't even know what the date is today. And all the networks said, no, we're not interested. It's too political. Somehow they have found it within themselves to reverse themselves.
My fellow Americans, I'm announcing a complete ban on white migration to the United States.
There you go.
For too long, these male-brained monsters have emerged from caves and wreaked havoc across the globe. We can't stop all of them, but we can make a first step.
Here is, lastly, the NBC national security and justice reporter Julie Ainsley, who fact-checked Mike Pence's interview where he was claiming that that the border wall was a national emergency, a necessity on Stephanie Ruhle.
The caravan that would have arrived after the election, I didn't hear much of it, showing that this is not about a crisis. It's a political ploy. I want you to walk us through your reporting because it is so desperately important. As I mentioned, conservative Americans like my mom and dad who watch conservative media outlets are being lied to by journalists, by the White House, when they're told things like 4,000 terrorists are pouring in. And I want to share a bit of what Mike Pence said when Hallie asked him about it.
With regard to terrorists, we've seen more than 4,000 known or suspected terrorists attempt to come into our country through various means, but on the southern border...
But let me stop you on that number, because it is a misleading claim that's been fact-checked, as I believe you're aware, because that number is for all ports of entry, including airports.
Well, and that's what I was saying. It is from all ports of entry, but on the southern border, last year alone, 3,000 special interest aliens were apprehended trying to come into our country.
Okay, great. So we're having some champion wordsmithing here, Julia. Walk us through this. For those Americans who do want to live in a safe, positive environment and the fear-mongering that's going on out of our White House.
So, Hallie, what we have is a theory that is being pushed by the administration that has been fact-checked, and as we fact-check it, they change their talking points. So you're right, leading up to the midterms, it was the caravan. As we put more fact-checks about who these people were, how they were mainly asylum seekers and families, they've changed the message now to focus on terrorism. We heard the message over the weekend and from Sarah Huckabee Sanders last week that there were 4,000. We fact-checked that and found that only 6 in the first half of 2018 came through the southern border. More than that came through the northern border. Those are people on databases, or what's known as known or suspected terrorists. It doesn't mean that they are going to be arrested or charged with a terrorism-related crime. That's a higher bar. But these are people who have names on a database that are known to the United States and to our law enforcement officials. Now they're changing it again. They're going to an even lower category, which is known as special interest aliens, and saying that 3,000 of those cross the southern border in a year. That may be true. That's not data that I have. The data on the 6 is from the databases, the known and suspected terrorists. But what I will say about special interest aliens is they are even further from what we would categorize as a terrorist or anyone who would we be able to arrest or charge in the United States on terrorism-related charges. These are simply people who raise a red flag, usually because of their travel patterns. I've followed special interest aliens for a long time. It could be someone who is simply from India who shows up at the southern border and they're not sure how they got there. It's more rare for someone outside of the Western Hemisphere to be crossing on foot. That just makes sense. If you look at the map of the world, it is much harder to get in that way. You've already taken a flight, so why wouldn't you just take a flight to the United States? So they raise a red flag and people do more digging on them. That doesn't mean that they raise to the level of a national security threat.
All right. Now, what's also hilarious about this, if you can click through that link, this is the Homeland Security page that says myth versus fact, known and suspected terrorists versus special interest aliens. And this is from yesterday. They posted this. In recent days, the terms special interest aliens and known and suspected terrorists have become more frequently used as part of the discussions about the federal budget and border security. These terms are not synonymous nor interchangeable, but are two separate terms that are commonly used in national security community to describe different types of potential threats. there are people in the Department of Homeland Security who are clearly upset that not only are they pissed that the White House is conflating these things, I think they're pissed that their own boss is conflating things.
Clearly a different person than the one who wrote the secret Nazi code post.
Yeah, exactly. This is, we're watching the entire sort of apparatus of our government say, like, this announcement tonight is total BS. And here's the thing that's scary about it. The media is saying it's total BS. The government, broadly speaking, is saying it's total BS. And it's still going to happen, and there's no way to stop it. And that's what's the scary part, right? Where you start getting into this whole thing where it's like, everybody's going around doing this. Or they're like, yeah, wink, wink. We all know. We pretend to work, they pretend to pay us type of situation.
Well, maybe they're not getting paid right now, and that's why they're slacking on their white supremacy.
That could be it.
You want some fake stats to drum up a fake crisis to racially scapegoat a group of minorities to leverage your authoritarian government. You got to pay us.
It's going to cost.
The deep state finally bucks Trump because he's skimping on payments.
Indeed.
Yeah,
That would be actually how the deep state would finally take Trump down, is when he finally just gives them like the "you did some renovations in my hotel" treatment.
Exactly.
Yep. My brown bearded friend said the TSA agents didn't even remember to racially profile him on his way back from Los
Everybody's
Angeles.
getting so
They
sloppy.
look like they give like a very like poignant face. They're like, "Welcome to the country, Ahmed. No, I won't be looking at your bags. You look perfectly fine to me."
It's a true story, by the way.
Calling from a 602.